When you truly believe in something, it takes it out of being a project or out of being work. We have such an incredible product and people that are up here. My job is to bring the brand up there too. How can we create a brand that our people can be proud of, they can wear with pride, and they can talk about with pride, they know the story?
There comes a time, I think, when you mature, you get to a certain maturity as an organisation. We've discovered who we are, what our identity is. Stepping outside of how other holiday parks are, what markets they go after, and really created our own niche. This notion of adventure, about nature, and grounded in the communities and the places we belong. Let's build something for who we are now.
We needed to do this work to create something that's very clear in its story and in its meaning for us to grow from. With this brand, all of the other projects that we're in the middle of and starting and going to work on into the future can really fly.
It's not about doing something new and funky, it's about using all the design language we have at our disposal. My job is to look at what we've got and where does that need to shift. It's probably time to get serious about our brand and what it communicates to people and what we're actually all about. You've got a B on your thing. We want to build a famous modern brand, something we can all be proud of. Anything we change or adapt or analyse about the old logo and move towards the new branding was about connection or nature.
Nature is everything that we're about. Why people come and spend time with us, why people come and work with us. Ultimately, it's because they want to spend time in nature.
The current brand colours, that combination of primary colours, depicts us as a certain type of product. It puts us in company with these kinds of businesses.
Wait a minute, that kind of jars. This sort of like lotusy flower in bright colours that really represents play and fun. It doesn't really fit with our parks.
I think we understood here at Reflections that the current brand that we now have really didn't reflect that these parks are on Aboriginal land, have been on Aboriginal land. So I think the new brand, it reflects a little bit more about nature, it reflects about sharing these lands with other people.
We went and put our logo on a bunch of websites that kind of just reflected fun, and strangely, it worked a little bit too well.
When people turn up and they expect a traditional holiday park experience with all the amusements, they're let down, and that's representative in the NPS because it's not who we are. I think the current brand misrepresents us.
I've asked a lot of people in the business, and there's different interpretations of the current brand. The most obvious one being, multicoloured flower. Some people have found surfboards. When I spoke to the original designer, was this idea of a fire from above, which really talks to connection. But unfortunately, it's probably not translating for most people. We wanted to basically remove all the ambiguity around the mark and build a new, fresh mark that meant exactly what we wanted to say. So stepping boldly into the future, colour. A great exercise we did was to get the colour wheel and looked at the competitive landscape. Where do most brands sit? At the moment we sit with the others, but there's two really interesting spaces there and free. One of those is synonymous with exactly what we're talking about. One of those says everything about what we're trying to communicate, and that is green.
Whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, I like that. The biggest aha moment was when the guys came in and started looking at the use of colour to tell the story. And we arrived at a space that wasn't clogged with everybody else.
We went out to parks and looked at all different colours in nature in our parks, and we really started to see that nature itself can provide a beautiful modern palette.
While a deep green was important for us, we didn't want a green that felt like it didn't belong in our part of the world. We were working on greens that you see in water, for instance, greens that you see in lower lying shrubs and then in higher trees. And so what we've landed on is this really interesting palette of green.
This colour that differentiates us from other competitors might also just be the colour that best communicates what we're about. Typography was a huge part of the process.
We could have a whole session on typography and why we landed where we did. But I think the key overarching sort of reason was that We wanted a typeface. We wanted it to feel like it was born of the earth, not built on a computer.
We started putting together a handcrafted piece of type that reflected being out on an adventure, doing something in a moment. What would reflections look like carved in a tree? What would it look like drawn in the sand? It feels like it's an action, you know, the characters are connected. There's an energy to the logo.
The way in which we're now going to represent ourselves with the new colours and the new fonts, the signage, even our new uniform, is just going to help us level up once again. I didn't think I could be any prouder.
When it comes to the logo mark, we wanted to look at best practice and look at how brands are starting to simplify down and cutting the tricks to a more refined, flattened version of branding.
The job here was to work out what the right solution was and then start taking elements out of it to make sure that what we ended up with was something that was incredibly simple, powerful and single-minded.
So then we started to look at different marks over the colour, different marks over outdoor spaces to see what does a bold mark over a nature background start to look like. And what was interesting, it started to feel a lot more us. What's our mark? Where is that going to come from?
We have a very, very clear story. If I think about the mark itself, what we call our gathering circle, it represents people gathering around a fire, telling stories and sharing and making memories.
But this is a story that's been happening for over 65,000 years in this country. We really feel like our commitment to telling that story and keeping people connecting outside and respecting the land was an important part to build into this logo mark.
You know, people come to parks and a lot of them sit in circles yarning. That's been reflected across many, many years where Aboriginal people have come together and sat and yarned and talked about their culture and talked about their dance and talked about their stories.
And the third aspect to our story is water, the one thing that unifies everything. The ripple effect that you see in water when you're often looking at a reflection is captured inside our gathering circle as well.
The idea of something really so simple that you could draw it yourself. It can be scrawled, you know, it can be like, it can be rough, it can be organic, you know, this is about people, this is about the land.
There was a particular moment when we landed on the logo mark. When that was developed, everything else then spun off of that, and I could feel it. And that's when you know two things. One, you've got absolutely the right team working on it, and second, we're going to have an outcome we're going to be proud of.
When looking at the naming convention, we were super conscious of Reflections holiday parks and what that made people think and feel. Unfortunately, when you Google image search holiday park, you get images like this, and this, and this. All the things we want to push away from.
We are Reflections Holiday Parks. Through the research that we did, we knew two parts of that name were really important. Reflections is what everyone really knows us as and calls us. And holidays is key as well, because ultimately that's the business that we're in. And that's where Reflections Holidays came from. A brand that doesn't pretend to be something that it's not, but isn't limited by being just one part of who we are.
So how does it all come together? We start with a simple logo mark that means exactly what we're talking about. It means connecting in nature. Simple enough to draw yourself with a finger in the sand. We pair it with a piece of typography that feels like a moment of action. It feels like it's got energy to it and it's about getting outside, getting dirty. Combine that with a new name, grabbing the green and finding a colour combination of green that really punches out hard and vibrant.
It's a living, breathing thing that combines unique elements to tell our stories that we can all rally around, we can feel proud of, we can wear on our chests with pride.
I think it's fresh. I think it's contemporary. I think it's honest. I think it's us.
The new mark.
Simplicity is super hard. Complexity is real simple. It's just having to break this thing down to make sure that it fit who we are, say, reflections, nature, community, connections, all in one statement. And I think it does that.
The reality is any work that anyone has done at Reflections to date has all led towards this moment. Everyone who's here has led towards this moment. The current brand has done the job it needs to do. It's just our job to come together and make those decisions to get the brand to match the shift and where the business is going.
It has been so incredible, this process, and in some ways we're just getting started. I feel really lucky and honoured to have been able to lead this project and to work with such talented people. This is the brand we all get up and work so hard for and so hard to create. And I think this project and what this company is doing in this stage of its life is something all of us will remember forever.